Oh, mission broke. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, welcome to the Sisters Interview. I'm a Shaxi, member of the Order of the Laurel from the Kingdom of Antir, and my sister Serifkin, Knight, Pelican, Laurel. No, not Laurel. I always say that.
Oh my God, every time.
Okay, really, that's only the second time. Knight, Pelican, Lion of Antir, and Sir Valora. Are you a Pelican too?
He is a Pelican, and she's a Lion of Atenvelt.
And a Lion of Atenvelt.
Yeah, I basically titles.
So, and we were just being silly at the beginning here. Yes. So, welcome, Valora. Thank you for coming on and agreeing to be silly with us at the beginning.
We're peers. We're peers.
Yes, we're dorks. Anyway.
This is serious business.
Serious. Do you want to start, Dawn, so I can do the share thing?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. So, please tell us your origin story. How did you find the SCA and what drew you in?
So when I had just moved down from the village, my friends dubbed it the village later on, and I was going to college, and I was quite literally kidnapped and taken to Estrella War. I had a friend tell me she was taking me shopping for my 19th birthday and took me out to Estrella War, and she's explaining the SCA to us as we're going. And she explained it as, so it's like one giant S&M game.
Oh my.
With crowns, and you have to bow to them, and if you don't, they can spank you. And I was also still very, 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 very Mormon at the time.
Oh.
So she takes me to her camp, and it's a very fringy household, but she puts me in like this 14th century-esque Italian dress with a train. So I spent the entire night going on it, and then I'm trying to pull it out from under boots. Then took me to a thunder circle and then a cloven fruit party. So I'm like, I have joined, this is a cult orgy. I am sure this is a cult orgy. And she finds a guy at a cloven and leaves me there.
Oh no.
Like,
wow.
I remember calling my sister from a porta-john going, I might need you to come get me. People are weird. And she's like, oh yeah, totally. Like, where are you? I don't know. I didn't drive. So finally got her to take me home eventually. And started hanging out with her household. And I was like, oh, not giant sex orgy. Okay, I can handle this. And then it was a very, very fringy household. So they only went to like 2, maybe 3 events a year. So hung out with them for like 2 years. Took me far longer than I cared to admit to realize it's historical. I met my ex-boyfriend and started hanging out with him and his group. I met him at Estrella like the day he got knighted. And he came up and he's like, or that might have been like the second time I met him. And he's like, oh, I got knighted. And I was like, good for you?
Yay.
No idea what that meant. So I started hanging out with him and actually started playing a little bit more mainstream. Went, oh, history. I can do this. So started hanging out with him and getting in with his group and making friends. And that's what really kind of stuck me was the not a giant sex orgy. That was a really big sticking point. And just the meeting the great people. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And I don't have to be afraid.
Oh, that first Estrella that you went to, did you get introduced to the fighting at all?
No, we went out there like way after the fighting ended. And so the 2 years that I hung out with her household, we spent that entire time making armor.
Oh.
Because I had seen the fighting at, I think, like a Southern, which is like 9 months after Estrella. So I started, they're like, oh, we're all a household of fully trained fighters. And they were Viking Valkyries, but dressed like Johnny Depp pirates. And they were all fully trained fighters, but nobody had armor. And so they got me in with people like, they'll help you make armor. So we made armor for 2 years. And then when I met my ex, he was like, oh, you want to try this? We have loaner gear. Like, what is this? I don't have to make it all. I can just try it. This is phenomenal. So I started attending, he had a backyard practice every week. And so I started attending that and got to fight in loaner gear and got to actually try it out. And I was like, oh, I like this a lot.
Were you athletic before?
Yeah, I had played sports all through high school. So I was used to like being competitive. I was in far better shape then than I am now. But it
happens to the best of us.
I got fat and happy. So, but I had played like, and again, you got to remember small school, like really small school. So if one person didn't play, we didn't have a team. So I played 4 different sports going through high school. I played basketball, volleyball, weightlifting, and I danced. And then I also played boys basketball so that they had enough people my senior year. Nice. So not highly competitive sports because there were 5 of us, but sports.
Okay. So what did you love about fighting when you finally got to try it and you got your armor on?
That I got to hit things. Okay. It was definitely like one of those, like, so sports is how I got my aggression out because I can be a very angry person. So I could just knock someone over while we were playing and be like, I feel better about life. And so when I got to hit things with sticks, I was like, ooh, I like this is fun. And it gave me something to kind of steer that athleticism to. And it was, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And just also like the just camaraderie with fighters. There is a definite like family knit feel of the, we all do this insane thing. We're all going to be insane together.
Cool. That's cool. You're also very artistic. Were you into art before you got into the SDA?
Not so much. That kind of came about from an accident of, I watched a friend who has developed into a great friend make a silk banner. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And not even like, she didn't even teach. I just got to watch her like paint it. I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then when we were going to Estrella, my boyfriend was like, oh, we'd really like some banners to make camp look nice. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And oh my, they were awful. I thought they were great. I thought they were amazing. And then I learned more techniques and I was like, oh no, those are going away. No. So, but it all kind of came about of the group that I was with wanted to look better. And so I was like, well, I'll try it. Right. And then I also kind of learned that I started playing when I was a broke college student and my labor is free to me. Right. So if I wanted to look better, if I wanted to make clothes, I couldn't afford to commission someone to make them. So I had to learn skill sets. And they were very, very rudimentary for a long time.
Okay. So let's go back to the fighting because you got knighted before you got your pelican, right? Like, yeah. Okay.
Like a long time before.
Yeah. When did you know that you wanted to fight like seriously?
I think from the beginning. I was like, ooh, I want to do this and I want to be good at this. Along the line somewhere, it kind of shifted of like after I got knighted, it wasn't so much like I have to be good, I have to be good, I have to be good. And it shifted to, I want to be a fun fight. I want people to come off the field and go, that was fun. I don't care if I won. I don't care if I lost. Like, I don't care if I got trounced. Like, was it fun? That's kind of when I shifted shield styles and all that stuff. So I think from the very beginning, I knew I wanted to kind of go that path. And that's how I went.
Did at first, because your boyfriend was a knight, were you learning from him and yeah?
Yep, they had this really awesome, and I think they still do. They have this really awesome backyard practice. He has a huge property where they can go and fight in one of his fields. And they have an amazing structure to that practice of when you go to this practice, if it's your first time, you get to spend 3 weeks in the kiddie pool, which is no one's going to absolutely brutalize you for that 3 weeks while you figure out shield goes here, sword goes here, and all that stuff. And then once you're comfortable, then they broke off into groups. So you had group 1 and group 2, and group 2 was more advanced. And these are all non-belts, by the way. And then the group 1 was kind of the newbies. And then you had all of the knights. And when I was going there, they had like 6 knights or more that would attend that backyard practice. And so the knights were the trainers. And so a few knights would take group 2 and a few knights would take group 1, and they would teach whatever we were working on for that day. And then it started with bear pits and ended with bear pits. And then in the middle was teaching. So you got to fight to warm up, learn something new, fight to try and cement it. So it was a very structured, very awesome practice. So I was incredibly lucky when I started my fighting career.
That's amazing. I've never actually heard of people, separating into groups like that, but what a great way to cater to the level the fighters are at. Very cool. Did you meet your knight through that practice?
Both, actually, because Rich was my second knight, or sorry, Phelan not. Arius was my second knight. So I met both of them kind of through there. Arius didn't go as much, but my first knight was there every week and squired to him, and then he had kind of life happen. And so I ended up just kind of not having a knight for a while. I had what I called my Knight of the Day program. So if I needed a knight to sponsor me in a tournament, I would go to one of the knights that I knew, and I was like, hey, I need a knight. Can you be my knight today? Which was really kind of funny. I went to an Estrella and I ended up fighting who was also at that time King Uther. And we fought, and he's like, hey, I'd love to talk to your knight. Who is it? I was like, well, normally it's this guy, but today it's this guy. The weird looks that you get from people when you do. And then there was one party that my actual knight was at, and he ended up getting in his cups and doing what knights do and talking and blabbing and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know all the details because I was not there for all of it. But at the end of it, in order to settle a debt or whatever, or make things right, I got traded to Nikita as his squire, even though Nikita was the squire. And so Richie looked at him and was like, oh, you're my squire? What's yours is mine. She's mine. And although Nikita still claims, he's like, I'm the only squire who's gotten a squire knighted.
Before he got knighted.
Yeah, before he was. He was
You didn't do any of the work. It was all him.
No.
Was that okay with you? I mean, did you have a good relationship with Arius? And
oh yeah. I totally claim all my lineage through Arius. He was an amazing knight. He was the one who taught me a lot about a lot of the stuff that I try to look for in squires is stuff that Arius taught me. So like he was very much a stickler of when you interviewed him, he told you he had the rules. He held us to those. And he would go and you were the first person on the field, you were the last person to leave it, and if there was a white belt there, you were fighting him, because his whole philosophy is as a squire, it's your job to beat up voters. And so it's your job to say, hey, remember me later. Right. And you fight them until they remember you.
So at the time that I'm just gonna say you got traded. I don't know. Were you and Nikita dating?
No.
Okay. All right. I was going to say, how weird was it to be, well, when you were squired though, you guys eventually started dating, right?
Yeah.
Was it weird at all to share a night with your boyfriend? No?
Nope.
No weirdness. Okay. Cool.
No, there were three of us. The main ones were me, Nikita, and then Matthias, who has moved to the Outlands. And we just loved hanging out together. So we got into so many squire shenanigans. It was probably bad at some points. But we just liked hanging out together. So that's what we did. And there wasn't really any weirdness to it.
Excellent. That's excellent.
It's interesting. Misty also was a squire with her boyfriend.
At the
I'm
time.
not saying this correctly. Rifkin, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
So that's interesting. So how long went from when you started fighting to when you hooked up with your second night?
It was, I want to say, and don't quote me, about a year and a half.
Okay.
From the time I had started fighting, I had gotten squired, and then about like 6 months later, he had kind of had life happen and had to leave. And then I spent a couple months, being just by myself, which, was fine because I had so many knights who were willing to watch out for me that it wasn't a big deal for me. And then I don't remember exactly when I think it was about February. It was after Innistraya. And then so I spent, from the time I seriously started fighting to the time I got knighted was about 5-6 years.
Wow.
And I spent, I think, 3 years of that with Richie. Sorry, Arius.
And what's the fighting culture in your kingdom in regards to women? Were there a lot of women fighting? Were there other female knights around when you got knighted? I don't know your story at all, so.
There was what's a lot of women? I mean, in some kingdoms, one is a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
There were 2 female knights living in kingdom. We had Sir Trudy at the time that I started playing, and then Sir Ismania were both in kingdom, but neither one was really fighting or playing really actively. So there weren't any in kingdom actively, but I mean, there were female fighters out, so they did exist, but
You didn't feel like a novelty.
no. Well, I mean, not as like the, ooh, she's the only one. But I do think that there can be quite a bit of when you're new, and especially when you're new, everybody wants to tell you 500 ways to do one thing. And when you're a new female, they want to tell you 800 ways to do one thing.
And when you're a cute new female, it might be 1,000. I don't know.
So helpful. They are so helpful. But it never bothered me. I was taught very early to listen to everybody, internalize what applies to you, disregard everything else. So being bombarded with information, really, I was like, okay, cool, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. But then the other piece of advice that I got that kind of stuck was like, when they're talking to you, whether it works for you or not, they're telling you how to beat them. So don't just discard it, like log it away. You might not be able to do it, or you might not be able to do it yet, but kind of keep it in the back of your brain. So it's always been kind of one of those things that I've always been willing to talk to people about it and have people talk to me. And I keep what I can do. I remember what I can't, and I just keep doing what I can do.
Are you like a fighting journal person, or no?
No.
Like I was going to say oral learner, but that could go in a bad place. Sorry. Anyway.
Not as much. I am more of a kinesthetic learner. So I have a really hard time hearing a concept or trying to read something that I wrote down earlier, because I did try to write things down and what I did and what I didn't. And then I realized that I did not have a good enough recall in order to make that a useful tool for me. I am very much more of I'm going to try it. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to tweak it, or I need to disregard that altogether. But I have a really hard time going from auditory to function in my brain. It's not how my brain works.
Cool. So you did a lot of traveling as a squire, right?
That was all. Well, a lot of that was Arius. He was very much of, and you to be a knight of the society, so you should get to know the society, not just your kingdom. So we traveled a lot, not as much out of kingdom as I wanted, but he made sure that we traveled across our own kingdom especially. And I have traveled a lot more since getting knighted. But part of the other like nice thing was, some of the times that I was a squire, Arius was king. So you got to travel with him and go do like, all right, we're here with him as he's like off doing kingly stuff.
It's kind of a cool place to be too, where, if your knight is the king, you can set you up with some pretty cool pickups.
Oh yeah. And he had no problems. When Nikita was kind of a baby fighter, he went and like, hey, go tell that old guy he's old. It was Duke Man. So he had no problem just going, feed to the sharks. Like, so he would pick us some amazing fights.
So out of the three of you together, who got knighted first? Casca, you did?
Well, technically, Morgan got knighted out of Richie's group first. There was a pretty large gap between Morgan and then the next set of people. But out of my group, it was me, then Nikita, then Maddie.
Okay, cool. So did you I know from my experience that people are not very good about not being very, I don't even know the right word, but being a little bit too enthusiastic about you getting knighted and telling you a little too much. Did that happen to you? Nikita's still a baby. Nice. That was Merrick. That wasn't me.
It's not wrong. We joke that I never wanted children, but I have one.
There you go.
So I don't know if I never felt like there was that like, ooh, like I felt it more later as being a knight longer, that like, you're the great white hope. And it's like, no, I'm really not. I'm just gonna be me, and I'm gonna do the best that I can do, and that's a pretty okay person. So I'm okay with that. So I know that there was definitely a lot of excitement when I got knighted or got offered, but I don't know if it was any more than any other person who gets offered their belt.
What a wonderful place for you to be. That's awesome. That's totally awesome. So tell us, I guess, we could go to a picture, because I think I have a picture of your knighting. Let me look. Let's share the screen. Did that work?
Nope. Now we're seeing doubles of
there
it. Oh, there we go.
Does that work?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, but that's not the picture I want. Let's see. Hello. Sorry, you guys. I want that one. All right. There we go. I make it big. So tell us about your knighting.
So I kind of went into this a little bit when I had my between two peers, but my entire family showed up wearing Canadian tuxedos. And trying to explain to them knighting like on the fly was a bit much. My mom was very confused. So I grew up in a tiny, tiny town riding horses my entire life. So my mom was so confused at you have worn spurs literally your entire life. And now this group is finally telling you can wear spurs? Yeah, mom, that's what this group is telling me. Or just how many people like told me how to walk in spurs, like kick your heel to the side when you go downstairs. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've actually ridden a horse. Like, so I did, we had the vigil the night before because it was at a coronation. It wasn't at a camping event. So Nikita's aunt, Nora Rose, opened up her home to have my vigil at. And I did stay up all night. I got a bath. Arius is a dick. And he put salt in the water to make it colder.
Oh.
And then I did get a bath, and just a word to the wise to anybody who is having a bath, take your red belt off because it will stain the white tunic you're wearing red right around that point.
It's a good tip.
Just a heads up. And then we went the next day. We helped set everything up, and then we get taken in. And it's for us, what I don't know what's different. I wouldn't be able to tell you what's different about our knighting ceremonies as opposed to yours. But one thing that I really liked was the crown at the time was Thomas. And in my vigil, he came in and said, hey, I'm going to buffet you tomorrow. What are you comfortable with? And so he actually asked me what I was comfortable with. And my qualifications was because we had a few that were very, very humble knights after those buffets. And like there was one where the guy doesn't remember his knighting and like doesn't remember till the next day. And so when I went, I was like, okay, here's my qualifications. Thomas has done a lot of martial arts, so I trust his control a lot. That I was like, I don't care where you hit me. I want to be able to remember my knighting, and I do not want dental work. So so they bring us in, and I did get all the I did not have speakers. That's part of Arius's line is or Arius's line of knights is that the people who spoke for you already did. That's why you're here. So I did not have speakers. I did get the lineage belt, so it went from Casca to Phelan to Morgan to me. And then the dubbing and punching and all that fun stuff. And yeah, my mother was not very happy watching her daughter get punched in the face.
Was it a punch or a slap?
He did an open hand, but hit me with this part of his hand. So it was a solid hit, but I don't remember there being a loud noise. I just remember my head snapping and then like come back going, okay, I'm okay. And I think it was more of like one of those, it was at that moment I realized I had never actually been hit in the face. I played sport and I've got elbowed, I've gotten all this stuff to my face, but I have never like been hit to the face. It was kind of one of those like, oh, that's what that's like. Okay. So threw me a little off.
That's cool. So you had said something earlier that I wanted to follow up on, and I can't remember what it was. I'll come back to it. So did you get any besides the lineage belt? Like, was your chain special? Did you get a whole bunch of chains? I know that like somebody told me like Adrian got like 30 chains or something ridiculous.
That happens more for us in the vigil.
Okay.
Interesting.
At least for me, I think I did get a couple other pieces of regalia in the vigil, but that is one thing that I wish that I had written down better was people that had come in and what got gifted in the vigil, because it's such a blur of people in and out and in and out and in and out, and you're being talked to, and that it was one of those like it just all blurred together. And so I know I did get a couple of other pieces. The chain that I was given came from Duke Man. I don't believe it had a lineage to it. And then the spurs that I was given were typical Atenvelt spurs, which have a rowel about that big, and then a clacker on the rowel, because as Duke Nud puts it, you're a knight, they should hear you coming. And I still have the chain and the spurs. My belt, with it being a lineage belt, was passed along to Nikita when he got knighted.
That's cool. Do you actually wear your spurs? No. I have to tell you, I have never worn my spurs after the day I got knighted. Never.
I thought about it, they were cool. I wore them a few times, and then I realized drunk me does not know how to get my boots off if I have spurs on them. Because I forget to take the spur off, and then I have an argument with my boot for like 30 minutes. It's like, oh, my foot, and I forget about the spur.
That's funny. That is so funny. So after you got knighted, at what point did you decide that the goal was to be a fun fight? And how do you make that so when different people think of a fight as fun differently?
Well, fun for me.
Okay, fun for you. All right, that's different.
I got knighted fighting heater. It wasn't a standard Atenvelt heater because I am smaller than a standard Atenvelt fighter. So they actually had to take an Atenvelt heater and cut it down to fit me, because it was like this wide and I'm trying to like fight around it. And they're like, okay, no, this is not working for you. So they did have to cut it down to a smaller size. So I got knighted with heater, and then I think it took me a while to want to switch, because I am 100% a creature of habit. I get in a thing and I like it and I don't want to change it. So you almost have to hit me over the head to go, to get that to spark even slightly. So I realized I was bored fighting, because I am a very, very defensive fighter with a heater. And so I got bored, and I was like, well, if I'm bored, the person I'm fighting is definitely bored. And so part of it came from, I don't know if you've ever watched from here, our Sir Casimir. He's like 6'3", fights with a round, and is one of the gumbiest motherfuckers on the planet. He drives me insane, because he's like sword blocking his shield side leg. He drives me nuts, but he is so much fun to watch fight. And like same thing with like Zipser, like you could lose, but when the crowd is cheering you off the field, like that's a fun fight.
Right.
So I realized that I was not having fun fighting. Like I was like, okay, I can win, I'm doing okay, but it wasn't mentally fun for me. So that's when I started that I wanted to switch. And then it was actually can't remember if it was the crown that Aelinon won or the one that Morgan won, where I realized that my footwork had surpassed my shield, and I was trying to move and throw shots, and I couldn't get my shield far enough out of the way and keep it in place, that it was driving me nuts, that whole crown. And it was after, I think it was the one that Morgan won, and it was after that crown I went to Morgan. I was like, I think I want to switch to a center grip. And he just like, well, I was waiting for you to get there, but okay, like had to give her own time. And so it was, before that I knew I wanted to be fun, but I wasn't exactly sure how to go about that. And then I switched to my center grip, and like spent a lot of time getting my ass kicked, as we all do. But I was having fun. I was able to move. I was able to throw shots. I was able to see things that I hadn't been able to see before. So it was after I got knighted, and quite a bit after I got knighted, that I was like, no, I need to make a switch.
So, I'm trying to like, because I looked for video of you, and most of the video up is pretty old. I think like the most recent thing was like Great Western War 2018, and I think there you're fighting with a kite. Is that right? Or teardrop?
Teardrop.
Teardrop.
Yeah, I had gone to Franbald because he is a shield whore. And I knew that he had a kite that he wasn't, or not a kite, a teardrop that he wasn't using. And I was like, hey, can I just try this? Because I'm not going to put the money into buying a new shield if I try it. And I hate it. Because I tried fighting around. I hate around passionately. I am not good at it. I cannot do all of the twists and turns that makes a round functional. That is not how my brain works. So he had a teardrop, and I was like, ooh, can I play with this and test this out? And he said, yeah. So I think Great Western War might have been right after that crown, and it might have been the first time that I actually got to play with it. I don't remember though. Don't quote me on that one. It could have been 6.
Okay. Let's look at the pictures of you fighting, and you can tell us like stories. Because it sounds like there's a good story to go with the picture, the first picture that I have in the roll, and I just have to go back. Come on, go back. Oh, come on.
Computers, they're possessed.
I want to go back. I'll go back now.
Somebody asked if the kitty has a question. The kitty would like to know, are you a dog or a cat person?
I am technically a pet person.
Excellent.
I lean towards dogs, but I do not have a lifestyle that is conducive for dogs. We are gone a lot, and I don't think that's fair to do to a dog. So, and with both of us fighting, it's not, at least to me, it's not fair to take a dog to an event to just leave them in the tent all day.
Right.
So I'm a cat person because they are at least partially self-sufficient. I have cats, but
Am I sharing the right thing now?
you're still sharing my knighting photo.
All right, let's stop the share, and I will share the right thing. I'm sorry, you guys. There we go. Boom.
There it
is. Oh, she's not gonna like this. So obviously this is before I switched to my teardrop. The other thing was after getting knighted, I don't remember how long, but I think like 2016, 2017, I got into a car accident and had a lot of like herniated disc and stuff from that car accident. So when I came back, I wanted something familiar. And it took me a while to also feel comfortable enough fighting to feel comfortable switching and doing something new. So this is, again, that's like our household tunic. We were talking earlier, and that's like what our household does. Every year we make a tunic for Estrella, and we all fight in those tunics. We usually try to gear them towards the Estrella crown. So we've started dubbing them the Morgan support tunics because he has more than anybody else. And this is when Adrian had come out to go to a Highlands War, and obviously before she got knighted, and we ended up having some passes, and I think it was the second pass. I still don't know how, because in my brain, the logic and fighter doesn't make any sense. I threw a leg shot and managed to hit her taint. Not her cup, straight on taint.
Wow, I don't think I've ever been hit in the taint.
Oh, neither did she.
Wow.
And I like, props to her. She went a couple more bouts with me after that, but she was not a happy camper the rest of that event.
Oh my God.
You throw a really great rap. I think I've tried to copy it. Like there's video of you, I think, fighting Duke Trelawn or something. And I don't know how many times I've watched that, because I'm like, I am stealing that rap.
See,
But,
most of the time, I don't know how I do it, because I came with a natural leg shot. It's just, I was able to throw that before I could throw anything else. And oh my God, my ex-boyfriend Squire, he was one of like my first people that I fought. where I was still learning like target zones and lingo and what things meant. And so I legged him, and then I kept trying to hit his body, but I didn't know how to do that. So I kept hitting his leg and just kept hitting it and kept hitting it. And he kept going, I'm legged. But I didn't know that meant stop hitting my leg. So I kept swinging, and he's like, I'm legged. I know, you're on your knees. And just like, I brutalized his poor legs so bad. And then finally, like, my boyfriend like pulled me out and went, you can't keep hitting the leg if he's already legged. And then let me go back in.
Did that work?
Yeah, you're now showing me in a teal tunic.
Yes. All right.
The only ones other than this one, I just made this one of my only fighting tunics that is not a household tunic. I figured that out at a crown. I was like, oh
Good. I've got it to work. So here's another one, right? Can you see that one?
Yeah, we're fighting melees.
Yeah. So is that an Estrella tunic, or is that like one of your tunics?
That was a me tunic. That was before we really started doing the household tunics. For our Aiden belt household. That's actually a brotherhood tunic for my Outlands household that I'm a part of. But Curse of the Fighter, all of my tunics inevitably I end up growing out of right here, because as I work and as I move, this part of my arm gets bigger no matter how I cut the tunics. So eventually Mineko loves it, because when I grow out of tunics, she gets them usually, or I pass them off to fighters that are smaller than me. But yeah, I end up through washings and it's shrinking and my arm's getting bigger. Like all the tunics end up like just this tight on my arm, and then I can't feel my arm. It's a curse.
Yeah, I have that same problem. Come on. There we go. That was the knighting one. We saw that. So what is this one?
So in Aitenvelt, our Sword of State actually belonged to the chivalry. So only a knight is allowed to hold our Sword of State. And that comes from, we had a Sword of State that was called King's Blood, and that was stolen. And so all the knights at the time, I was not a knight, but all the knights got together at the time and commissioned a new sword to be made that is called King's Victory. And they all got to go and hammer and make the blade.
Oh, cool.
So the Aitenvelt chivalry own our Sword of State, and if you are not chivalry, you are not allowed to touch the Sword of State.
So do other peerages, they're not allowed to swear fealty on it, or?
You're okay, sorry, not touch, hold.
Okay.
Hold the Sword of State. You're allowed to touch, you're just not allowed to hold it if you are not a knight.
Okay.
Sorry, a shiv.
Okay.
So there, it was at one point we were at a Great Western War, and Ivan and Yanka during their first reign, and I hear Valora coming from the tent, and I'm like, "Can I help you, Your Majesty?" Ivan set the sword on the bed, and I want to go to sleep. Can you move it? Yes. Where do you want me to put it?
That's funny.
So this picture is actually at a Highlands War at Melissa's Pelican ceremony. I got to hold the sword for that court. So that's a picture of how I hold the sword.
Well, cool. All right. I think the next picture is, I think, of your lion medallion, and we haven't really gotten there yet, but we can start talking about it. Were you recognized as a lion before your pelican?
Yes.
Okay. And what does the Lion of Aitenvelt mean?
So it can mean different things to different crowns, but it is the award that the crown gets to give out once a reign. It's kind of our like,
right.
And it depends on the crown, but usually it's someone who inspires you or personifies what the SCA is. Never, ever, ever, ever thought that I would get a lion. So Morgan really kind of surprised the crap out of me. So yeah, I never thought that would happen.
Is he one of your mentors now in fighting? Is he the one you were talking about when you changed your shield and he's like, it's about time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I go to his, well, before COVID, all of this is before the COVID times. I would go to his house once a week and we do Pell practice together. And then every week we're both in the same barony, which is really convenient. So we go to our baronial practice later on in that week and he'd help me apply what I was training in Pell practice to actual fighting, because that works better for my fighter brain. So I started working with him. I don't remember which crown, but there was a crown that I had come back from my injury and I was just getting trounced and I wasn't getting any better. And no matter how hard I was trying, it was just starting to get really frustrating to fight. And so I knew Morgan had a Tuesday practice and I was like, hey, can I come? Because I need to do something. Something needs to break this routine. And so when I started working with him, and then 6 months later was the first crown that I actually felt that I did really well in. I had done okay in crowns, but that was the one that I did really well in. And it was like, well, I guess it worked, because that was the only thing I changed. And from then he's been just kind of plugging me along.
Cool. Has he helped you with your mindset? Is that something that you struggle with?
Oh, so much. We've been starting to work with, a lot came from when I had to understand and learn exactly what my mindset was. And part of it was learning that I actually did want to win a crown. Because every little girl tells herself, oh, it would be so cool to be the first queen by right of arms. And you can tell yourself that all you want, but most of them don't actually believe they'll do it.
Right.
And so
or put the work in to do it.
Also true. So it took me understanding that is something, and understanding for myself that is something that I could do. Not only that I wanted, but that I could do it. And so we have to work a lot on, I am my worst critic as far as fighting. So most of the stuff we're having to work on right now is just me believing that I have the ability. And it sounds stupid and it sounds easy and it sounds like, well, yeah, just do it. And it's like, oh no.
No, my sister's giving me side eye right now because I what you say is exactly resonating with me. It's all about being your own worst enemy and figuring out how to bring the confidence that you have at pickups or at whatever when you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna own you. How do you bring that when you want to bring it?
Yep. And half the time I spend half the time going, don't lose. And so he's really been working hard on, don't focus on not losing,
right?
Focusing on winning. And I think, that has been a battle and a struggle. Because I immediately, I go into a tournament and as soon as I find out I'm facing a knight, I'm like, fuck. And that shouldn't be the normal response to something.
Well, no. Yeah, it should be like, fuck, I'm gonna get a good fight, right?
So, or especially if I'm my worst critic, but I'm also very brutally honest about where my skill level is. And, I know that, okay, I don't have as much success against that guy as I would like, or I do have really good success against that guy. But most of the time it's not as good as I'd like it to be. So switching that's okay to understand where you're at, but it is not okay to let that defeat you. Of just, yes, this guy technically is better than I am, but this is my plan to win. I have the ability to win. I just need to put it into play. So he's been working really hard with me on that and trying to change that mental part of it from, oh, fuck, to fuck you. Not his words, mine.
It's important to put it in your own words.
So, and it's funny because like Arius comes to that very naturally. So that was something that I really didn't or wasn't able to learn from him, because he comes by it very naturally. Nikita comes by it very naturally. That they can just, oh no, this is my field, motherfuckers. And meanwhile, I'm like, are you sure it's okay if I'm here? I don't want to take up too much space. So it's I didn't understand, or I didn't realize how big of a struggle it was going to be to do that mental shift. And it is slow and it is frustrating. But the more and more we work on it, the more and more that I stop going into a defeatist mentality right away. And I try to think of what I can do first. So he has been really kind of a driving force of that, of don't think that way. We need to change this. And if I say something, he's like, no, it's this way. Like if I'm like, fuck, this is gonna suck. He's like, yeah, for them. So he's been working really hard on that. And I think like this last crown was the first time that I think I was there mentally, of supporting me and thinking that I could do it. So, but it's so frustrating because the very next tournament, it's like, fuck. It's like, what happened to the confidence person?
I mean, once you can feel yourself there, at least you know what it feels like. And if you know what it feels like, you can duplicate it, right?
Yeah, and this was the first round that typically when I lose, my mental game goes to shit. Because then I'm like, fuck, I already screwed it up.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, nobody does. And it just down spirals, because then I get in my own head that this was the first time that I had a loss and I was able to pull myself out of it. So, and it was like one of those like, oh, okay. So now it's going to be just continuing to try and feed that, but it's a hard shift. Yeah. My God, I thought that I was confident and I thought that I was already doing all of these things, to then realize that you aren't and that it's affecting you as bad as it is. It was like, wow.
It's tough, and it's tough because intellectually you get it. You get what you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And then for some reason, emotionally, you can't plug it in. And so that's super frustrating. So my experience is not your experience, but I can totally relate to some of the things you're saying. So yeah, you've got this. You're going to do it. And it just takes a while to get consistent. So I totally sidetracked you from your lion story, but you know, I was not surprised when you were given a lion of 8 envelope, because you know, what are you testifying?
No, I was so shocked.
Okay. Well, I wasn't, because I mean, just seeing you through the Facebook lens, I mean, you do so much for so many people down there, like just with your banners, and you know, I want to say garb, but doing costuming, because I don't like the word garb. Doing costuming for people and for royals and you know, whatever. I wasn't surprised. I'm sure you were, but I was not. And this is a good segue into your service and your art as well, because your art is phenomenal. The shading you get on your banners, like, wow.
That all developed because, again, I only got to watch a person make a banner. And then I had another person that I would kind of ask little questions of, like, okay, what is resist? Like, what is this? But most of that came from, no one told me I couldn't. So I got to develop my banner style by going, well, fuck, that didn't work. No, we're throwing that away. and get to, so no one told me I couldn't. So, and it was like, I have my boyfriend at the time was very, very efficient. And so he came up with the like, well, why are we printing out the images and then like trying to space it out? Why don't you just design the whole banner on the computer and then print it off to size? I was like, that's ingenious.
You can do that?
Yes. So all of my banners are designed in a vector program, and then I send them to Kinko's and get them printed off full size.
Wow, that is so smart.
Wow.
All I have to do is, now these are trade secrets, people, don't make your banners better by doing this. I have like 2-inch thick piece of styrofoam that sits on top of my craft table. So I lay out the banner image, I take the silk and I can pin directly through the silk and pin it down and draw it. I don't have to deal with projectors. I don't have to deal with any of that shit. If I have to stop, I can pick it up and move it to the wall and then put it back when I'm ready to work on it. Like, and a lot, it just came because people didn't tell me I couldn't. It was like, oh, well, that's ingenious. We're going to do that. Okay, that's ingenious. We're going to do that. So I cannot freehand draw to save my life. If I try to draw a horse, it looks like a stick figure donkey. Like, I cannot, but I can alter base images. So if I can find an image to work off of, I can alter and change it while I'm drawing the banner. But I cannot design something from scratch. I do not have that gift. I have friends that have that gift, and I love them greatly and abuse them horribly for their talents. And then the garb came about again from an accident. Well, not really an accident. It was, I had gotten knighted, and I apparently have a very high standard of what I hold peers to. I know that nobody understands that. And I had gotten knighted, and then I realized that to me, I didn't look like a peer. I feel that you should be able to see a peer. They should be visible. They should be like, that's a peer. That's how they dress. And I didn't feel that I met that. So I'd been knighted a couple years by this time, and we had started hanging out with, I'd broken up with my boyfriend. I started hanging out with a new friends group, and now Her Excellency Dionysia, I went to her and was like, I don't look like a peer. Can you help me? And she looked at my garb and looked at the fabric that I brought and went, you don't have anything that's not red, black, or white. Not using that color, not using that color, not using that color. And she's like, this is what you're using. And it was like this herringbone pattern and this like lime green linen thing. And she's like, this is what you're, I'm like, are you sure that's so bright? Like, yes, this is what you're doing. They liked bright colors, and you're gonna do stitching in orange. And I'm like, I've never done embroidery before. What is this magic? And so most of that developed from Dionysia going, oh, you sweet, sweet child. You are so pretty. And so I would just take garb over there. I do not have the ability that she does to look at fabric and go, these 3 things will make an outfit. And this is what you're going to trim it in. And this is what or I didn't, I'm getting better at it. This is what the stitching is going to be. And so I would just take garb over, and she would go, okay, you're making this now. And it's going to be this, and it's going to be made out of this, and you're going to trim it in this, and it's going to have this stitching, and yada, 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 yada. So she would just kind of like wind me up toy and say, go. But it was, most of that was all her, and me going to her going, I need to look better. And then through her, I've learned to do it more on my own. And then I found out that I wanted to go into new areas. And so I started getting with Her Majesty Elizabeth on stamping and learning how to do that. But it all came from a base of, I don't look how I think I should look, and I need to be better. So it all came from that.
Well, why don't we look at some of your banners, and then we'll look at some of your costuming. If I can make this stupid technology work.
While she's trying to do that.
While I'm trying. Thank you for
You have a really good eye for the size of things. You shared with me privately a tunic that you were stamping that's kind of up my alley. and you had the sizing and the placement and the shapes. It was just perfect. And that's really rare. I usually end up having to tell people, yeah, you need to go smaller with your motif. You're way too big. And I think you have a really good eye for looking at something and then making it look right. And that's a huge thing.
Well, and a lot of that came from Melanie and Elizabeth and Mariana as well, of just, I would want to make something and then I would go to the person who I knew the most about it. And they're like, well, maybe you should look at examples from that time period. And I was like, oh, that's looking at pictures. I can do that. Like, I'm totally Gastoning it up of, okay, if there's pictures, I'll do it. But if there's writing, I'm not. So, but it was a lot, and like just learning a lot about that the seam treatments were to hold the garment together and to decorate it. So if they're giant, they don't hold it together well.
True.
And just like learning that, you know, you can't apply modern expectations to ancient cultures and just we like big and bold, but they had to pack this on a horse. It's probably smaller. Yeah. So, but a lot of it is them like going, okay, you come on, little one, follow.
Okay, so I made it work.
Yay!
But I really love what the compliment Aishaksi was sharing with you was doing to your face. So
just the red that's going up right now. Yeah, red is a great color on me. It makes my freckles look brighter.
So I didn't do a very good job about putting these in order. I think this is a pretty recent one. But this is some of your silk banner painting and it's amazing.
So I can't take all of the credit for this one because this is when I had started finding a lot of the Scythian art, and I love the twisted animals so much that I had found an example of a horse, but my device is a Pegasus, and again, cannot draw to save my life. So I got to go to Her Grace Helga and go, I don't draw, but you do. I want this to be a Pegasus. And she took that and just ran with it and made the most perfect combination of the two pictures that I had showed her, and did the drawing for me. So I can't take 100% credit for the design because someone else drew it. But one of the things that I really enjoy about banners, and something that I think I do slightly differently than people, is a lot of people, when you do the Gouda, you actually, part of your process is you wash the resist out, and I leave the resist on, and it's an accent for me. So like all that gold, that's all the Gouda resist, and that's how I make things stand out and pop a little bit, because I don't wash the resist out, because again, no one told me I had to. So I was like, why am I going to put all that work to wash it out? That sounds dumb. So I use it to accent things and to make things either blend into or pop out from the background.
the thing I think that really stands out about your banners is your shading. You do a phenomenal job with that. I mean, even on the white here, I mean, that it's just amazing.
So that's all, depending on the look that I'm going for, it's all done with wet dye. So I'll have 2 to 3 paintbrushes rolling in a hand, and I work the dye all wet and blend it into each other. That's how you get that. That's like this one. That's all done wet to get that to blend.
Very cool.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, that was my knighting banner.
Yeah, just, you know, just your knighting banner, no big deal. So what's up with the Pegasus? Like, is that like something that speaks to you, or is there a story there?
Well, when I first started hanging out with the Fringy household, they were Viking Valkyrie, but like Johnny Depp's. And so I kind of wanted to, when I was still fairly new, and I will give this advice to anybody else who's starting new, who I did not listen to this advice if I did get it, is I wanted to pay kind of a, well, I'm a Viking Valkyrie, and they rode on winged horses. So I kind of wanted to pull the Pegasus into that. And woohoo, cider. And so that was kind of my homage to that. But if I'd have thought about it, I'd had like a line, because I cannot, again, draw at all. And so anytime I want to put my heraldry on something, it's like, fuck me sideways.
Well, we would never know that you couldn't draw because your stuff's incredible. But let's keep going.
Print it out full size. I just have to trace. I'm the world's best tracer. That was a pelican banner that I did for Nikita's aunt, Nora Rose, who just got pelicaned at Estrella. And she wanted a brown pelican, I think is what they're called. And I had to research what that was because I had no idea. And like, so you can kind of tell like up on one of the wings where there's a little bit of run over that, like my Gouda line wasn't solid. So like one of the things I really try to do is make sure that those resist lines are there. And it's always nerve-wracking when you're using a super dark color to shade on a super light color. But then like the other thing that you can do is like, so the red is all that, the red on the neck, that's all done wet. So you put the red down and then mix the black into it to get that kind of feathered look. And then the body, it all depends on what look you're going for. So one of the main rules is dye won't run where there's dry dye. It'll still go down, but it won't. So all the like feathered look on the body, that's all wet shading and then gone over after it's dried with the darker color to add the feathering look to it, because then it stays in the line as opposed to blending.
Wow.
So, and then because you can't really shade on top of black, that's a metallic acrylic paint.
Nice.
Several different colors of one, but it's metallic acrylic paint.
If you had not told me that there was some running in the feather, I would have never seen it because it just looked like shading. So.
This is me kind of trying to play with other colors than I'm normally comfortable with. Normally I stay pretty close to the color wheel. So if it's white, I'm shading with grays. If it's blues, I'm shading with darker blues and purples. So this teal, even though like teal is like my ridiculous favorite color right now because it pisses off florals. I made a black German with like baby blue, teal blue on it. And like the person who's helping me is like, that's not right. That is not right. Why are you doing that? I was like, well, if I have to wear a dress, it's gonna be fun. So, but they're like, that's not a period color. I don't care. It makes me happy.
Exactly.
So this is me kind of experimenting with other colors that I don't normally play with. And I like it, but at the same time, as I'm sure every artist will tell you, I can see everything that I would change about it.
I love how you took the like the migration era Sutton Hoo style and put it into your banner, like, you know, the enamels. It's super cool.
That was actually a base thought of when I started looking more and trying to build banners more to people's personas, that I get a lot of inspiration from jewelry, and that's a common one you see in like a lot of like the Longobardic stuff. And it was like, oh, and it's a way to get me to break up the background.
Is the snake a household thing?
Yeah, that's our Aitenvelt group.
Go ahead.
God, this one was ridiculous.
So Merrick asked a good question. He says, you are so talented with banners. Is there a banner you have in your mind that you are intimidated to try and bring to life?
Anything that requires original artwork.
Okay.
Not right now. There are a couple ones that I have seen from other people that like are so amazing that I'm like, I don't even know how you did that. But for most of it, I don't necessarily want to recreate those banners. I like doing banners because they're my style. And so I tend to, I haven't found anything yet that I've looked at that was my style that I was like, I don't, it's more right now of I've made a lot of banners and I don't want to make them.
Okay.
Is what I'm trying to struggle with now. But I mean, like, if I can find out where, like, on his achievement banner, we've got my friend's husky on it. So, like, I don't care if it's ridiculous or, like, you want Shrek on your banner? Cool. Find me an image. We'll get him on your banner. On Maneko's Pelican banner, we've got a Hello Kitty and Kung Fu Panda. So,
That's awesome.
I keep going. I thought these were funny. Once I heard the story on these, I thought they were so funny. But this shows off your embroidery skill.
I actually cannot do the large stitches for embroidery at all, which works for me because it's more period for them to be small. That's my excuse. But no, if I try to do big stitches, they look like a retarded baby made them, and I hate it. I am OCD enough that I'll rip them out. So I'm like, nope, I stick with small because you can't tell I fucked it up.
I have the same problem.
So I'm gonna go back. Sorry.
What's the story behind the purse thing? I was waiting.
Do you want to tell it? I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about it or not.
You don't have to.
It's not really my story to tell.
Okay.
No problem.
There's a bunch of snarky bitches out there who love being snarky.
It's actually kind of a cool story because it's an issue that female fighters who are good deal with all the frickin' time, and it's that people want to acknowledge that you're a good fighter, but maybe you didn't win the tournament, so you get the prize for being the best girl. The
Atta Girl Award.
Yeah. Up here it used to be the chivalry prize for quite a bit of time. So and the sentiment is great, but it makes you feel lesser than, and you don't want to feel lesser than. Anyway, so we will interview the person who actually has the story, and we will get the story. But yeah. So here's some costumes.
Like, after years of working with Dionysia, this was actually one of the first outfits that I actually put together, color coordinated and everything myself. Between Maneko and Dionysia, they learned very early that I'm hard on clothes. So they quit very early trying to go, well, you should make a dress. Like, you realize I'll never wear it. And so, but they learned that I'm hard on clothes. And so they had me try to create what Maneko calls a capsule wardrobe. So I work in kind of similar colors and kind of similar designs so that I can mix and match and pull anything, and then it matches. And so I don't have set unders and set overs. I could wear any under with any over. So that's been their goal, and that's what they work with me on. And that's what so this was one of the first ones after they had started me building that wardrobe and my costumes. This was one of the first ones that I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And I did, this was before I started using the more Slavic patterns, which I like a lot better. And this was also one of the first times that I also picked the stitches. And I like really long, full tunics. And I curse myself every single time I have to seam through those.
Right? Like,
why do I like this to my shin?
It's way more flattering, but man, are those seams long.
Yep. Oh, that was my pelican outfit. This was when I really started getting into the Scythian art. I love the twisted animals so much. And I had seen a couple of examples, and I think it was, I don't know if I had the idea or Dionysia had the idea. I think she did. And she came to me and was like, hey, I think one of these days we need to do a tattoo sleeve. I was like, oh, I am down. That sounds awesome. I'd gotten more comfortable with embroidery at this time. And so when I got offered my Pelican, other than my medallion, I made all of my Pelican regalia. So I made my elevation outfit, I made my cloak, and I made my hat. And so I was like, well, we've had this idea of a tattoo sleeve. I think I'm going to do it for my pelicaning thing. So I have like the tiger comes up and sits across my shoulder, and that's for my Outlands household. I've got the pretzel snake on it, and that's for my Atenveld household. I've got I think it's called a Trishskiel, the wagon wheel looking thing, for Morgan and Elizabeth. I've got, and so it's a lot of different people and groups are represented on that sleeve. And it was, Dionysia helped me out a lot. That's where we actually like pared down and fit the pattern to fit me exactly. Because she brought up the good point as I'm starting the stitching going, well, did you make sure the sleeve fit you? I was like, no, I didn't. And so like she was such a big help for that project. It turned out so much better because of her.
I love how you did the checky on your cloak. I don't know if I have a good picture of it. Maybe there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was most of my stamping stuff was from Her Majesty Elizabeth. Anytime I've had a question with stamping, I'm like, hey, this dumb thing. And I've got to be over there and watch her stamp and watch how she does it. So if my stamping is good, it's all because of Elizabeth. And she was the one who, I can't remember if this tunic or another, it might have been this one. She was the one who's like, oh, it'd look really good in that little gold dots in everything. And so she's really great at seeing like the accent parts. If you want to know what would make this pop.
Are those paillettes like metal spangles?
Nope, they are the back end of the little sponge dauber, the wood end of the back.
Oh, okay.
I did that in paint and.
So did you carve this stamp or did you buy it or?
At this point I hadn't started carving stamps. So this was a buy.
I'm asking because it's basically my device.
I have this stamped on.
Oh, do you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I've actually got this one in 2 different sizes. I'm so special.
Have it in 3.
Oh, now I have to up my game. Darn it, I have to buy more stamps.
Don't try to outbuy her. Just don't.
Yeah.
Oh, so this was the original OG, you're doing something in acid green because it is so far outside of your wheelhouse. This was the coat that Dionysia had me put together when I asked her for help. She's like, this was the very first thing she had me make. And she's like, it's going to be this color and it's going to be this and it's going to be this. And I was like, but it's so bright. It's so bright. And she's like, A, it's not that bright. And B, they liked bright colors. So like, it's funny that like at first she had to like lime green was like, oh my God, so out there. And now she has to like, okay, no, that is not the right color. I'm like, yes, it is. It's amazing. We're going to put this blue. And she's like, no.
That's really pretty.
Oh, this was I had a Master Thorn made me that stamp. It unfortunately warped after I did all the stamping, so I can't use it anymore, but it was a beautiful stamp based off a piece of Roost Medallion. And he stamped that for me. And that tunic was to replace, I went to Gulf Force that year, and they were not lying when they said it's hot and humid.
No.
And I wore a long sleeve tunic. It was one of my like original, like I think it was the 2nd or 3rd thing Melanie had me make, or Dionysia had me make when we started making things together. And I was at Gulf Wars and it was so hot and humid that I was like, make this a short sleeve tunic now. So that was the tunic that I made to replace that one. And yes, I love teal because it's ridiculous and it makes me so happy.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like orange and teal right now is like my go-to combination. So
yeah, I've had to start branching out of it because I looked at my closet and went, oh, I am too much of a capsule. Oh, that was
beautiful.
that was when I first started doing the Slavic construction. Thank you, Phoebe. I'm spacing on her SCA name right now. Ingrid. For sharing that pattern, but it was one of those, like, I realized I didn't have a warm wool coat, and granted it's Arizona, so I think I've gotten to wear it once since I made it. But that was like I need a warm coat and I can't work really hard to have my garb look good to throw over just a shitty coat. So it's like, I'm actually going to put in some effort to this one. And I think this was the first time that I actually started like stamping on the trim and turning the silk into trim and trying to do that. And thank God for, I think it was Cassandra, and I'm not, can't remember if that's her SCA name or not. She and I have a love of like mitered corners and making them fit just perfectly on the 45. It is glorious.
The woman who was my Laurel would be very proud of you for doing that.
Oh, and on that coat, that was the first time like I did a box stitch. Margaret, again, I'm spacing on her SCA name. She was like, oh, there are actual embroidery books out there that you can look at and find new stitches. I was like, what is this magic? And so they gave me this embroidery book to find. And it's basically just like you take a chain stitch, but you do the base wider so it then makes a square when you do it. Cool. That was my first time using that one and trying to play around with that one. Oh, the Hidebi or Hibathi bags, wherever you find them first.
Hathaboo.
Yep, those are fun. We had an ANS competition out here, and Mistress Dalitha, her ANS display was one of these bags, but she had altered it. So normally it's just front panel, back panel, side panel, and that's as wide as the bag opens, is that side panel. Well, the way she did it was she sewed a tube, sewed the tube in half, and then sewed the wooden panels to the front side of each tube. So it actually opens like accordions open and close. And when she had this at ANS, I was like, oh, I need to make that. So this is actually one that I made for Dionysia.
Very cool.
And it's stamping and pearl work, and then stitching, because the more I do into Ruth's research, the more I'm like, damn, they love pearls so much. Oh, this was the under to my pelican tunic. So it had the bluish purple one was on the top, and then this one was underneath. And this was one of the first times that I started trying to add more of the silk banding and using the silk just as itself as an accent. Because I think I got to a point there for a while that I was like, everything must be stamped and crazy. And then I started having to edit a little bit. I was like, oh, the elements in and of themselves can be pretty. Okay.
Cool. So, Duke Morgan asks, on your path, especially for knighthood, how did you overcome your detractors, both for yourself and in the eyes of others?
Overcome my what?
Detractors? Did you have any detractors? She didn't have any. So.
No, I'm fucking amazing.
Right.
No, I got, and I kind of mentioned this on my Between Two Peers, like before I got knighted, I had hit the point that I was like, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to get knighted. And I got to be okay with that. And so I got to kind of have that discussion with myself of, well, if this never happens, is that okay? And I got to come to the outcome of, yeah, I like playing this game and I'm going to continue playing this game. A, I have got way too much money invested in it to stop. And B, of just I love it. I love the people. I love playing. I'm going to keep playing. So one of the things that I have to kind of get over now is, again, people kind of thinking you're that great hope. You're finally going to be the girl that does it. You're going to, I can't wait. Like, it's a little almost when people come up to you like, oh, when are you going to win one? I'm like, I wasn't trying to lose the last one.
The last 10.
Yeah, we can't wait for your reign. Me either.
Great.
So I think that's a little bit of it now. And it's more of like, I've got to the point that it's kind of funny for me. Like, yeah, I will get there when I get there. And when I get there, it will be awesome. But it's kind of a little bit of like I'm not the great white hope. I'm not the be all end all. I'm not the only female fighter out there. I'm not the so some of it's mental and some of it just like, I'm okay being me and being okay that me is enough. Yes, I have goals, but being me is enough.
Yeah.
Mary posted another. Do you want to respond to that, Misty?
I was just gonna say that I think people really mean well, but I don't know if you get this too, but like the whole like, if I worked as hard as you, I would blah 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 or whatever, and you're just like, I'm doing the best I can.
So I have a big mental block. And I know it's there. I don't necessarily want to overcome it right now. And I don't necessarily know how to overcome it right now. But I have a big mental block right now with fighting Nikita. Because that motherfucker sits on a couch for 6 months, practices maybe twice, and goes further in crown than me.
Hey, it sounds like my life here. Like, my husband and I had this faux crown for May Crown, and I won, but he has not practiced in like a year.
Maybe longer.
People are like, wow, he did really good for not. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking know.
Yeah, it's annoying. Yeah, no, Nikita can just sit there, and he is naturally a better fighter than I am. And so it's frustrating for me when I'm like, I go to 2 practices a week and he comes, and I want to be able to just show him everything I've learned, AKA kick his ass. And it just doesn't happen. And I'm like, God. So, but yeah, that's the stuff I struggle with now.
So what was the question you're going to ask?
I was going to ask a Merrick question.
Okay.
He says, earlier you said that you have emulated your requirements for squires that Arius taught you. Are there any of those rules that you have tossed aside or added to when considering a potential squire?
So it's kind of funny. Like I am the Pope of Nope in our circle.
Pope of Nope.
Like, nope, they don't do enough, they don't fight well enough, blah, blah, blah. Whatever reason, I am the Pope of Nope. And I'm having to learn, because for the longest time, and part of this comes with the mental shift of believing in me, was I thought for the longest time that I was the low bar for knightly prowess. And it's something that I kind of had to realize, is that when you're going to like top 10 in crown in a 40-man list, you're probably not the low bar for knighthood anymore. And it's something that I just figured out this last crown. So I'm actually having to reevaluate those squire rules and my squirely expectations. I don't think I've tossed any out that Arius has told me, but I am definitely having to relook at them, and I'm not sure exactly what those will be. I'll have to wait till I get back to an event and kind of when I see it. But I am having to redefine those.
Do you have squires or students?
I do not have any squires. I have one student. She's my man-at-arms. Shavana from down in Mons Nitrous has been my page for years. And then when she got to fighting age, she decided she wanted to pursue that with me, which is interesting.
So she was your page when she was like a teenager?
When she was a kid.
Oh, wow.
I've been friends with her family, and she's 18, 19 now, and I've been a knight for 8 years. About that time. And she was my page like starting 2 years into that. So she's been my little page for like since she was 11, 12 years old. So, and then when she got old enough to fight, she decided that she wanted to do that. So she's my man. I do require a man-at-arms period because that's, for me, a time to see if you like me as a teacher, because we might be fun friends, but you might not like me telling me to get your ass in gear, because that's a thing. And that I like you and that you can learn from me. So, because I am a big one for find the teacher that you can learn from.
So have you had any squires? Have any of them got night? No.
No.
Is there a reason why you've waited, or just haven't found the right person?
No, it's not anything to do with that. That is something that Arius, and I think even Morgan talked about it a little bit in his, is you have to come ask me. I think I have never liked knights that brand new person throw a squire's belt on them before they even get a chance to understand what the SCA is and understand what they're getting into. So I am a sit back and wait. And if you work with me and you've got to have the cojones to come and ask me. And I haven't had, Shavana was the first one to come and actually ask. So
cool.
And then we hit a pandemic. So she's going to be my man-at-arms forever.
Does this count for her year or whatever?
So you do a 6 months to a year as my man-at-arms, and then we have a discussion and we discuss like what I've seen, what you've seen, what you like, what you dislike, what I dislike. And so I have to give her so much credit because she's not only my student, she's also kind of having to prove herself to my household. And so she is getting feedback from so many people, and she is taking it with grace and trying to become a better person and trying to kind of grow up and trying to do all that stuff because she's grown up in the SCA. And so she's also in that rough transition age to, are people going to see you as a 12-year-old forever, or are you actually going to get to grow up and be an adult in the SCA? So she's also transitioning through that phase as well. And it's difficult for me because like I played sports and I had a lot of lingo down to reference with fighting, and she doesn't. So it's difficult for me to figure out where to fight, how to teach her how to fight. So I'm having to like reevaluate everything that I thought. So, but we'll see where things are when we get events again.
Cool.
So what are your goals with your art going forward?
I don't know if I necessarily have like long-term goals. Most of the time, like I am super AD ooh shiny. And it's like, ooh, I want to make that because that looks cool. My persona is technically Byzantine, and I picked it in the long ago in the before I actually looked at Byzantine garb. And then I looked at Byzantine garb and went, oh my God, that is gaudy as hell. And I don't want to wear that. And then like one of the most recent tunics I made in the COVID times, like I looked at it, I'm like, that's Byzantine. Oh, that is so Byzantine. But it was one of those like, ooh, shiny, I bet I could do that and I want to try that. So most of my like art stuff is not long-term goals. Mine is just, what's the next pretty thing I can make?
So it's just following your joy.
Yeah, right now I'm doing a lot of research into like Greek and super early period because that's what Zipser is. And we've been trying to help with him, and it's like, I have no idea what exactly this entails or means. So I'm having to actually look at pictures and try and figure out what that is. So that's kind of
Thracian's really hard because there isn't a set Thracian. Yeah, it's a hard one.
We've been looking at pottery a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the urns and the pottery, some of the like the mosaics, but you can't get details on that. It's like, even like when I was asking you about the Scythian stuff of just, okay, I can find some examples of what they could have looked like, but how did they put it together?
Yeah.
I have no clue. It's the next ooh shiny, and I eventually I'm gonna have to make some new armor. I don't ever want to get into metalwork because metalwork to me is witchcraft. If you can make metal do what you want, you're possessed. Because I have tried and it ends up cracking or breaking, and I'm like, I'm just gonna let other people work on that. But otherwise it's just, now that my skills have gotten better, now it's okay, now replace this old piece of thing that doesn't look right, or replace this old piece of thing, and just kind of go for that. I don't necessarily, I get into arguments all the time with Mariana, who's just like, if you would just do research. and she just gets so mad at me. But I had some bad run-ins with Laurels when I was first starting art, and it's like, if it happens, it happens. I will love it and I will be happy about it, but I don't want to do all those other things.
And I don't think you should. I'm sorry that you had bad run-ins with Laurels. That totally sucks. I had some really bad ones early on too. But then I had some really great ones, and I
have absolutely amazing Laurels around me. I like, that is not a twit on any of the Laurel. Like, again, Dionysia, who has been my teacher in most of this stuff, like, she's an amazing Laurel and makes amazing things. I'm not willing to do the things that you need to do to get the thing. And so if that thing never happens, I'm okay with that because I made the choice not to do it.
It sounds familiar to me. I've heard somebody else say that too.
That's how I feel about like any peerage. Like, if you're not going to do the thing, don't be pissed off that the thing doesn't happen.
Yeah. Just, like, my philosophy is like, if it doesn't bring you joy, and this is supposed to be our fun time, then don't do it. Yeah. Like, because really, like, the longer you're a peer, the more you realize that it really doesn't mean anything other than what people give to it, because it's really about who you are and what you do. And whether or not you have a white belt doesn't put value on your fighting or make you a crown contender. It's what you are doing that does that. And if you can apply that to everything, right? And it's a job, and it's a big job, and I think it's hard enough to be a good knight, let alone to be a good knight, a good pelican, a good laurel. I mean, like, it's just like, that's a lot.
Well, like, I have issue with it for the plain fact of, even my pelican, like, I wasn't doing any of that work to get a pelican. That was not my end goal. No. I was trying to be a good knight. And like, all of my art has been because I'm trying to look apart and be a good knight. So to me, it's just weird. And like, one of the things that I've had to come to terms with, and well, not to terms with, because but like talking and being around a lot of crowns, like the amount of people that they get to give awards to, and they're like, this person has been playing SCA for 20 years and they didn't even have an AOA, and I'm gonna get my panties in a twist because I didn't get recognized as a Laurel for making some pretty shit. No, like, it's just like one of those, like, they just barely got an AOA and they played for 20 years and they're happy. Like,
well,
no.
or they're not happy. Like I have this like sort of love-hate relationship with our award system because I think we place way too much importance on it. But at the same time, you really want to recognize people that do great things.
Yeah. And if you're doing things to get the Chuki, more power to, like, good for you. I hope it happens. But I am not going to get upset if something doesn't happen, because there are people who've been playing for 30 years who don't have an AOA.
Right.
I think this game has given me so much that, like, oh my God.
I feel the same way.
Is important.
And the most important thing this game has given me is my chosen family. So, but I also like the whole, like the research thing, like I write for a living. The last thing I want to do is write some research for whatever I'm arting. That's not going to happen.
Well, and I have, again, with being a kinesthetic learner, I have a really hard time with remembering, well, this is 3rd century Thracian, but this is 4th century Thracian, but then it turns over to 5th century Macedonian. Like, I'm like, I am never going to keep that straight. I am shitty with dates. I am shit. Like, I can kind of go, okay, this looks Rus, this looks Greek, this looks Roman, but I couldn't tell you whether it was beginning of the Roman Empire or end of the Roman Empire.
You know what's funny though is that the more you do it, the more that just sort of becomes innate. Like I never thought I would either, but my husband's Roman and I've been making Roman stuff for other people, and now I know that shit, even though I never wanted to know that shit. So
I was gonna say the same thing. I suck at that stuff too, but now I've spent so much time with the different finds that I can look at something because I've looked at it so much.
Yeah, that is one thing that, like, I never realized of just like, so like I've started going more Rus, and Nikita is Rus. So I've been doing a lot of research into early Rus stuff. And it's what, like, I had to joke with Maggie one day because I was like, I couldn't find anything on medieval Russian. And then I was like, oh my God, that's because Russia didn't exist. Like, it was, Kiev was a princedom and this was a princedom. I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot.
that's funny.
Then when you start breaking it down by regions, you can find a lot more stuff. But yeah, but it took me forever to like realize that medieval Russian didn't exist. And oh my God, Maggie was just like, duh.
So
you're arting a lot during this sort of downtime, you know, making stuff for His Highness Zipser. Are you and Nikita also fighting? Are you guys, are you keeping up your training or?
No. We don't really have an area that we can practice. A, I can't get Nikita to go to scheduled practices when we have baronial practices. And B, I have been struggling quite a bit with finding the motivation to fight right now, because when COVID first hit, I had just had a really good crown showing. I'm like, okay, I've got this. I need to keep this up. And then COVID hit and I was like, okay, I've got to keep this up because it's only going to be like 3 months and then we're going to be into a crown and I need to be ready. And then they canceled everything. And I'm like, you know, dumplings sound really good. So but when we were first doing it, I was still doing my Pell practice every week. I was doing workouts 5 times a week. And I have been really struggling with the motivation to keep that going, as I'm like, well, I was doing it for Crown, and then Crown isn't happening. And Nikita can tell me all he wants that, well, it's going to be in just February. Try for that. I'm like, that's so far.
But it isn't, right? Like I felt like September was so far away in May, and now it's fucking here.
Yep. And logically, I can tell myself that. Physically, my body's like pizza.
It is hard to keep motivated. It really is.
I kind of think that we should all have permission to do what we need to do to get through this.
Yeah.
You know, because this is some weird shit.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm trying to shame anyone. I just wondered.
COVID. That's how I'm dealing with, like, if I didn't have the SCA, I would be so bored. Like, that's why I'm arting so much, is like, I have a really hard time sitting still. So, which is why I talk with my hands a lot. So, and normally I'm sewing because it keeps my hands busy. But yeah, it's been all the art, because that's what has been like making the days go by.
I've been more questions, Dawn?
I don't, and I can't see any of the comments anymore. So if there's any questions in the comments, you're gonna have to track that, because I don't know why, but I can see 5 comments and that's it. And there's like 80
bucks
or something. So
yeah.
Valora, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Merrick asks, Merrick has a question.
Oh God.
Shocking.
Asks, who are the banner makers that have a skill set you aspire towards?
So I think that there's like Mistress Ari down in Triscuithir does amazing linen banners. I don't know if necessarily I aspire to make linen banners, but her banners are so beautiful. I get so frustrated trying to paint because I've worked so long with banners that when I actually paint on fabric, I get so pissed off as, why aren't you running into the corners? Like, because it doesn't work. But I think her banners are absolutely gorgeous. And I love looking at the Rothenheim camp because it is so decked out in banners. And I love seeing banners at an event because to me, they're the easiest way to make your camp look baller without having to bring a shit ton of extra stuff. Like all of my banners to make our camp look how it does fit in a box, and that's it. And I can take that to any event. And then when you guys interviewed
Ayiva,
some of the pictures of her banners, I was like, she was one of the ones I was looking at, like, I don't even know how you got that to work. And then she's like, oh, and I'm doing gold leaf on it. I was like, you're insane.
Yeah, her interview made me want to like up my camp. Like we don't ever camp, like almost never. But I was like, I need all this crap. Like to
it was ridiculous. And then she's like, and then I put fringe on this. I'm like, how? Like my mind was just blown that like one day if I can get to that point. And then she's like, oh, and I hand draw everything. I was like, well, I'm out. Yeah. One day, like if I could get to that point where I could draw and I could actually make a like design, like that would be cool. But let's be honest, that is going to take a lot of work.
So, besides the crown goal, do you have any other big goals in the SCA that you want to accomplish?
Not really. Again, most of the ones that I have got, like I was so surprised when I got them that I don't know if they were goals to begin with. Mostly to me, it's just I want to be able to be there and continue to have fun with my friends because my friends are ridiculously hilarious to hang out with. Like that whole like we're peers, we're super serious. That was Minako all of Estrella as we're running around like idiots, you know, doing wizard staff, and Mineko's like, yep, we're peers. We're all peers here. Like, you know, as a peer, you don't have to be serious all the time. Like, you don't have to be like, I'm a peer. Like, you can still have fun. It's just don't hurt anybody else in the process.
Right. like wearing dinosaur heads and minion glasses.
So I think the goal is just, other than crown, the goal is to just keep having fun and keep finding those new projects of like, ooh, this looks fun to try and make. I'm gonna try to do that. So, but to me, that's the people in the SCA is what make the SCA. So being around them is just awesome.
The people like you hang out with and you guys are really good at making fun. Like you guys are fun makers. How do you stay motivated to do that, and how do you come up with things?
Most of the time I am just along for the ride. Because we have got because at Estrella we had Gabe and Ollie and Germanicus, Talon, and Zachariah, and all of them are like, we're bored. What is a stupid thing we can do? Because they like to be entertained. So like at Battlemore, they created narwhal jousting, which involved Marshall sticks and Eric ropes and trying to dock the Marshall sticks. And it was ridiculous. And by the end of it, they had everybody around them wanting to play narwhal jousting. That it's like, I don't know how they come up with these ideas, but I love that I'm there when they do.
So it's blame Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe's a really good one.
Okay.
But I don't know how they do it. Like they're just like, and then like we've got several people. Like this year was at Estrella was the best because we had Germanicus and he plays guitar. And so whenever he's bored, he just sits out with his guitar. And same thing with Barrick. He's out with his banjo, and they don't need an audience. They're just doing it there for themselves. And I think that's what makes it amazing, is they're not trying to put on a performance. You know, we're not trying to entertain anybody. We're trying to make it fun for us, and other people get drug in and have fun as well. That, and again, I say they basically do most of the work, and I just get to go, woohoo!
Cool. That's cool. Well, I don't have any other questions. Do you?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it has. It's been a super pleasure. Thank you for being so candid with us, and I appreciate it. I appreciated getting to know you a little bit better. I have admired your fighting and your determination from afar. I think we fought once at an Estrella before you got knighted, and I was impressed then, just because you are such a fierce isn't the right word, but you have a lot of good intent. You always have, from what I've seen, and it's really beautiful. So anyway, that's my weird compliment to you.
I already made mine, so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being on with us and for talking about your SCA experience. Next week we're having Duke Deaton. Is that right? I think that's right. We're going to have Duke Deaton on, and that should be very interesting. He's a pillar of Aitenville, and he's moved up here, and I don't think anybody knew who he was up here.
Amazing stories. That was like one of my favorite things. Maneko cued me into it. She's like, you want to know what the best thing in an event is? You find Deaton and go and sit by Deaton and then just listen. And it's like, because he's got, oh my God. He's got amazing stories.
Yeah, well, cool. So we'll all get to hear Deaton's amazing stories next week. And I'm looking forward to it.
Kitty.
All right, thanks. Yep. All right, bye, everyone.
Good night.